Inside a garage, Charlie is busy fixing the airplane his wife, Sarah, gave him as a birthday present. Sarah interrupts his work to inform him that she'll soon be leaving for a business conference in London. She once again invites him to accompany her, but Charlie declines, explaining that he has a heavy workload. Not long afterward, Charlie arrives at CIA headquarters. As he heads toward the decryption and analysis department, he passes through all the security scanners, technology he himself designed, before finally settling into work. Suddenly, he receives a message from Inquiline, a shadowy figure he's been secretly in touch with for years. As usual, Inquiline offers classified, high-value intel for sale. However, this time they warn Charlie that the contents of these documents could seriously jeopardize the CIA. Charlie attempts to deduce Inquiline's location and guesses Istanbul, but they dismiss his assumption. He proceeds to analyze the data, but, to his surprise, not even someone as brilliant as Charlie can decipher the code. After taking a lunch break, Charlie returns to his office and gets a call from Sarah, who informs him that she has arrived in London. But Charlie is already aware he's been secretly monitoring her location. Their conversation is brief, as Charlie is eager to return to the encrypted files. Still unable to crack them, he moves his computer into a restricted zone equipped with a more advanced system. Eventually, after considerable effort, he succeeds in unlocking the data, and what he discovers leaves him stunned. The documents contain top-secret government information revealing that a drone strike had been falsely reported as a suicide bombing and subsequently covered up. News footage included in the files shows that the attack resulted in 150 deaths, including French special forces and Danish Marines. The entire operation had been orchestrated by Chief Moore, who also happens to be Charlie's direct superior. Later that evening, Charlie tries to contact Sarah, but she doesn't answer, so he leaves her a voicemail. The following day, Charlie arrives at the office and is caught off guard to see Moore waiting for him. Moore escorts him to the office of O'Brien, the newly appointed CIA director. She informs Charlie that a terrorist attack occurred at a hotel in London, and Sarah was among the victims. Refusing to believe it, Charlie insists on calling Sarah, so Moore turns on the television to show live news coverage. The report states that 4 terrorists stormed the hotel, taking 4 hostages and killing 2 of them. Moore then shows Charlie surveillance footage from the hotel, capturing the chaos of the incident and confirming that Sarah was indeed one of the casualties. When Charlie returns home, he finds a swarm of journalists gathered outside, with police trying to manage the crowd. A friend discreetly helps him enter the house, shielding him from the media frenzy. The next day, Charlie confronts Moore and supervisor Caleb, expressing deep skepticism about the official narrative. He finds it implausible that the terrorists managed to avoid detection in a city blanketed with surveillance and traffic cameras. Moore insists that an investigation is underway, but Caleb dismisses Charlie and tells him to go home. The day after, Charlie heads to the airport to receive Sarah's body and her belongings. Back at home, he opens her suitcase and discovers a gift she had bought for him. The sight of it overwhelms him, triggering a breakdown. Unwilling to remain idle, Charlie returns to the CIA and once again accesses the restricted computer, this time to hack into the security footage from the hotel and surrounding streets. He pieces together a detailed timeline of the attack and presents his findings to his superiors. According to his investigation, the 4 terrorists stole a car in East End, entered the hotel via the service entrance, and skillfully wiped all fingerprints and DNA traces. They were supposedly scheduled to meet with representatives from Impact Investments, an Indonesian firm, but something went awry, sparking an argument in the hallway. A security guard from the company got aggressive, prompting one of the terrorists to open fire, killing him and leaving another gravely wounded. Hotel security immediately contacted the police. In a frantic attempt to escape undetected, the terrorists barged into a conference room and took hostages. Sarah was captured while she was trying to help other attendees flee. Charlie utilizes voice and facial recognition tools to identify the assailants: Mishka from Moscow, Lawrence, a former South African Special Forces operative, mercenary Horst, and Gretchen, a former intelligence agent. But when Moore and Caleb show no surprise at these revelations, Charlie realizes they already knew everything. They claim the matter is being handled and suggest Charlie speak with a therapist. The next day, Charlie hides a chip in his ID badge and manages to bypass the security systems without detection. Once in his office, he prints all the confidential documents and uses a skimmer to create a digital backup. That evening, he sits in a bar, staring intently at a jukebox, lost in thought. The following morning, Charlie confronts his superiors once more, this time armed with the printed documents. He enumerates Moore's covert missions, including the bombing of a hospital in Syria and a strike on an allied military base in Yemen, which resulted in massive civilian casualties. Charlie threatens to expose everything to the CIA director, revealing that he has activated a dead man switch. Unless he inputs a special code every 5 hours, all the evidence will be released to major global news agencies. In return for keeping quiet, Charlie demands complete CIA training, a stash of fake passports, cash, a firearm, and intelligence on the individuals responsible for Sarah's death. After the meeting, he heads back to his car and vomits from the overwhelming stress. Back at the office, Moore insists the dead man's switch is a bluff, but Caleb argues that they can't afford to take that chance. If it really is fake, they'll locate the trigger and then arrange for Charlie to suffer a fatal accident during training. Soon after, Caleb and his team begin investigating how Charlie managed to duplicate the classified documents. They consider the possibility of a skimmer ineffective on secure computers but potentially usable with a printer. It's plausible Charlie sent the files to the printer and utilized a magnetic strip to copy them. Upon reviewing surveillance footage, they confirm that Charlie purchased a magnetic strip from a store, though they still can't figure out how he smuggled it in and out of the building. The agents also search Charlie's house and eventually discover he had visited a particular bar twice. They head there to investigate and find an ABBA CD hidden beneath the jukebox. Caleb selects that CD from the jukebox's catalog, which only emits static, prompting them to retrieve the disc Charlie had planted. Meanwhile, Charlie arrives at a CIA training facility where he's greeted by Colonel Henderson. They begin training at the shooting range. Though Charlie performs poorly, he has to be right up close to hit the target accurately. However, when it comes to bomb making, Charlie is remarkably quick and precise, earning Henderson's admiration. Next, Charlie must memorize his new identity. To reinforce it under pressure, Henderson berates and throws him around, forcing Charlie to recall his cover details through the chaos. Eventually, the new passports are completed. Later that evening, Henderson visits Charlie's room and tells him he's not a killer. Charlie insists that all he wants is justice. Henderson then pulls out a gun and hands it to him, daring Charlie to aim at his chest. But Charlie's hands tremble uncontrollably, and he ultimately lowers the weapon. At CIA headquarters, agents spend hours decrypting the contents of the CD, only to discover that Charlie's dead man switch was a fabrication. They rush to report this to their superiors, unaware that Charlie is eavesdropping on them. It turns out the chip hidden in his badge was actually a listening device, which he had planted on the documents he handed over. Moore quickly calls Henderson, instructing him to arrest Charlie, but it's already too late. Charlie has vanished. After ending the call, Moore finally notices the bug embedded in the files and contacts Charlie directly, accusing him of treason. Charlie removes his earpiece just before boarding a flight. Upon landing in London, Charlie clears customs and sets out for Paris. As soon as his forged passport is flagged in the CIA's system, Moore sends Henderson to pursue him. Once in Paris, Charlie checks into a hotel near a restaurant frequented by Gretchen. Eventually, she arrives, and he begins tracking her phone from close range. Charlie spends the rest of the day outside Gretchen's apartment building, waiting for her to leave. When a tenant exits, he slips inside and follows a tutorial video online to pick the lock to Gretchen's apartment. Inside, he snaps photos of her schedule and finds a gun in one of the drawers, which he decides to take. At that moment, his tracker notifies him that Gretchen is returning. He hides in the stairwell to wait for her, but when she finally arrives, he can't bring himself to pull the trigger. Frustrated with himself, he returns to the hotel and imagines Sarah waiting for him, trying to calm down. Taking a closer look at the photos, Charlie notices Gretchen has been visiting the hospital regularly. By hacking into her medical records, he finds out she has severe allergies. The next morning, Charlie buys an abundance of flowers and waits at a cafe until he sees Gretchen, then tails her to the hospital. While Gretchen undergoes tests, the doctor notices the computer system malfunctioning and steps out to get assistance. Seizing the moment, Charlie, disguised as a doctor, enters the room and locks Gretchen inside the machine. As she starts to panic, Charlie begins filling the chamber with pollen. Although the doctor and a nurse hear the commotion, the door is securely locked. Gretchen's allergic reaction worsens, and Charlie demands to know Horst's location. He's the one who shot Sarah. Struggling to breathe, Gretchen can't respond, so Charlie opens the chamber, but she immediately shoves him into a desk and a fierce fight erupts. They battle across the room, hurling each other into walls and furniture. Charlie pulls out his gun, but Gretchen knocks him down and manages to unlock the door. She escapes into the hallway. Charlie, desperate, chases her onto the street, but before he can fire, Gretchen is struck by a passing car. Shaken by the sight of her broken body, Charlie forces himself to approach and grabs her phone. Then he flees the scene, discarding his bloodied lab coat in a trash bin. Back at the hotel, he scrubs away the blood and packs his belongings. That night, he heads to the bus station and purchases a ticket to Marseilles. Meanwhile, the news of Gretchen's death reaches the CIA. O'Brien confronts Moore, who simply responds that it looks like Gretchen was eliminated by one of their own. Later that night, Charlie finds a bar and drinks heavily in an attempt to numb the guilt of Gretchen's death. At one point, he thinks he sees Sarah dancing, but upon closer inspection, it turns out to be a woman who merely resembles her. As he processes this, he spots Henderson approaching and panics. Shoving his way through the crowd, Charlie escapes the bar and races through the streets until he finds another bar to hide in. However, Henderson tracks him there too, prompting Charlie to bolt to the bathroom and lock the door behind him. With no windows in the bathroom, Charlie is left with no escape route and is forced to come out. He rejoins Henderson at the bar and learns that he tracked him using Gretchen's phone. After a brief exchange, Charlie reveals a timer on his phone and bolts from the bar just before a bomb detonates in the bathroom. The explosion causes panic and confusion, allowing Charlie to disappear while Henderson loses sight of him. His phone tracker also goes dark, rendering Charlie untraceable. The following morning, Charlie reaches out to Inquiline for assistance and departs on a cargo plane bound for Turkey. Once in Istanbul, he heads to a restaurant and sends Inquiline a message. When he hears a man's phone ring, he attempts to approach him, but a woman blocks his path and tells him to check his own phone. Afterward, Charlie exits the restaurant, and the same woman approaches again, revealing that she is Inquiline. She already knows about Sarah and instructs Charlie to hide his hat and backpack inside a shopping bag. Inquiline tells him to act like a shopper for a while, then meet her at a nearby garage. A short time later, Charlie meets up with her again and she drives him to her home. During the ride, she shares her backstory. She became a hacker 6 years ago following her husband's death. He was a CIA asset and also worked with Russian intelligence. He was the original Inquiline and taught her everything she knows. According to official reports, he died after accidentally falling from a window. Upon arriving at her home, she confesses that it's the only place she's managed to stay longer than 3 years and admits she's grown weary of life on the run. If the Russians ever come after her, she has a gun ready to end her own life. They then shift the conversation back to the mission. Horst is in charge of recruiting mercenaries for more. Lawrence deals in weapons, and Inquiline offers to pose as an arms trafficker to make contact with him. Lastly, there's Mishka, who travels often and frequently shares photos online. After examining the images closely, they spot a woman accompanying him. Facial recognition leads them to her Instagram profile, confirming she's currently in Spain. Meanwhile, Caleb instructs his team to monitor the terrorists closely in hopes of tracking down Charlie. O'Brien confronts Moore and demands that he stop running Black Ops missions without her consent. Moore replies that her predecessor gave him the same warning, so he offers her the same response. She has his complete support. After their meeting, O'Brien enters her vehicle where her assistant shows her a photo of Henderson in Spain. Realizing Moore sent him, O'Brien dispatches one of her own agents to intervene. Elsewhere, Charlie and Inquiline locate Mishka by hacking into the surveillance system of a hotel. Charlie then travels to Madrid and checks into the same hotel. He discovers Mishka enjoys swimming in the rooftop pool that connects two buildings. At the same time, Henderson picks up Charlie's trail in the area. The next day, Charlie constructs a device intended to trap Mishka and hides it inside the hotel. Later, he follows Mishka to the bar, unaware that Henderson is waiting in the lobby. Charlie notices a suspicious man at the bar and realizes he's seen him before, concluding he's being followed. He discreetly tells Inquiline through his earpiece, and she scans the man's face, confirming he's a CIA operative. She also spots Henderson on a nearby camera and urges Charlie to abort the mission, but he insists on moving forward. When Mishka heads to the pool, Charlie confronts him and demands to know Horst's location. He warns that unless Mishka talks, the pool will collapse. Skeptical, Mishka swims away, but Charlie activates the device, causing the glass to crack. Panicked, Mishka speeds up, but it's too late. The glass gives way, sending him plummeting to his death as water gushes into the street below. Immediately afterward, Inquiline warns Charlie that Henderson and another agent are closing in, and she guides him through an escape route. A chase unfolds, with Henderson nearly catching up until the second agent ambushes him. The two operatives fight fiercely in the hotel's laundry room, throwing each other into machines and surfaces. At one point, Henderson shoves the agent's head into a washing machine. The agent fires his weapon, but Henderson wrests it away and shoots back. Charlie briefly considers intervening, but Inquiline reminds him to keep moving. The next day, O'Brien brings Moore to her office and asks about Charlie's whereabouts. Moore claims he's on bereavement leave. She lets him go, but afterward reveals that she has acquired security footage from the hotel. Simultaneously, Caleb and his team review the same footage and realize Charlie had outside assistance. Digging through his encrypted communications, they eventually locate messages linked to Inquiline. After extensive research, they find the file of the original Inquiline, now deceased, and conclude that his wife must have taken over the identity. That night, Charlie and Inquiline decide to sleep side by side for comfort. However, they're abruptly woken by the sound of her birds shrieking. Checking the security cameras, they see a team of agents approaching the house. The pair immediately flee through a hidden tunnel concealed within the wall. As they make their escape, Charlie spots a drone flying overhead. They sneak into another building to keep moving and manage to slip out of the neighborhood moments before the agents storm the house. By the time the operatives arrive, the computer has already begun wiping all data, leaving nothing behind. After a sprint along the shoreline, the duo reaches Inquiline's car, but the drone spots them. The agents quickly give chase, firing at them and even continuing the pursuit by boat. After a prolonged and intense chase, the attackers damage the vehicle enough to bring it to a halt. Inquiline suffers fatal injuries in the process. With no other option, Charlie moves her body to the passenger seat and takes control of the car, continuing to flee until he finally loses their tail. Later, he parks the car in a garage and gives Inquiline a final kiss goodbye. The following day, Charlie contacts Lawrence, posing as an arms dealer in order to arrange a meeting. Charlie then purchases new electronic equipment and heads to Romania. Inside an abandoned structure, he records footage of his own face and hacks into a security feed in Berlin, creating a false trail. As a result, the CIA believes he's in Berlin and redirects their agents there. When Lawrence eventually shows up, he finds a ringing phone placed on a chair. Charlie instructs him over the line to check a nearby box, which contains several explosives. If Lawrence makes a wrong move, they'll detonate. Upon spotting a photograph of Sarah inside the box, Lawrence becomes tense. Just as Charlie emerges from behind, demanding to know Horst's location and offering to disarm the bombs if he cooperates, Lawrence explains that Horst operates primarily in Russian territorial waters and typically accepts shipments through a Baltic seaport. Charlie then asks how communication with Horst works, and Lawrence replies that he only receives coded messages relayed by his men. All the relevant numbers and contact details are stored on his phone, which Lawrence tosses onto the floor. Charlie picks it up and walks away, just in time to hear the bombs detonate in the other room, ending Lawrence's life. Before long, the CIA learns of Lawrence's death in Romania and realizes too late that the footage placing Charlie in Berlin had been fabricated. Later, in a Russian hotel room, Charlie envisions Sarah by his side and opens the gift she had once left for him, a puzzle. He solves it quickly, revealing a heartfelt message hidden within, written by his wife. The next morning, Charlie heads to the seaport and spots a suspicious-looking vehicle. He sends a coded message to Horst's associates and observes a man by the vehicle checking his phone. Charlie tails the man, secretly snapping photos of his boat before leaving the area. After purchasing some necessary tools, Charlie returns to his hotel and tracks down the yacht associated with the boat by searching its registration number. He also maps out the likely sea routes Horst might be using. At dawn, Charlie makes his way toward the boat, but he's ambushed from behind and knocked unconscious, causing him to drop Sarah's puzzle. He wakes up aboard the yacht, where he finally comes face to face with Horst, who has already discovered the explosive device Charlie had previously planted. Horst, aware that Charlie has eliminated others indirectly, accuses him of lacking the nerve to kill someone in person. He hands Charlie a gun and challenges him to pull the trigger, but Charlie hesitates, unable to follow through, and lowers the weapon. Suddenly, the yacht begins steering in the opposite direction, throwing the crew into confusion. Charlie reveals that he has hijacked the vessel, which is under CIA jurisdiction. Since he had worked on the yacht's security protocols, it was easy for him to breach the system and redirect it toward Finland. Before long, the Finnish Navy and Interpol arrive, surrounding the yacht and arresting Horst and his entire team. Not long after, O'Brien holds a press conference to announce that all rogue agents who had been exploiting CIA assets for illegal purposes have been captured. Later, Henderson approaches Charlie and tells him he's proud of what he's accomplished. After visiting Sarah's grave one final time, Charlie returns home and at last takes the plane she gifted him out for a flight.